Tata, welcome back everybody from lunch adjournment. We're at that time where we go to council officers to respond to the hearing evidence we've heard. It's been a mixture of hearing panels, so we're in your hands as to how you want to present that response.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps we might go in order of appearances from those who spoke over the past 2 days. We'll start with Mr. Hall. So that's responsibility of both. There's a couple of parties who are involved there. Chloe, do you have any comments for the panel, particularly about building platform provisions?
Yes. At hearing 4, Mr. Rife recommended controlled activity rules NFR R1 and CBR1 to provide for construction of buildings and extensions and operations in the coastal environment, and ONL provided the building is a residential unit on a defined building platform where the defined building platform has been identified through an expert landscape assessment and approved as part of an existing subdivision consent. This recommendation in hearing 4 is subject to further analysis of implications in terms of how it is used elsewhere than the PDP. Mr. Hall noted his evidence for this hearing. His preference is to use the term defined building platform or buildable area. In a controlled activity rules, NFL R1 and CR1 as opposed to the wording recommended by Mr. Bayer. On reconsideration, the wording suggested by Mr. Hall referring to buildable area is appropriate and consistent with the terms used in the resource consents, which negates the need to define the term building platform in the PDP. Council agrees with Mr. Hall's requested amendments and will provide updated wording for rules NFL R1 and CER1 in the written reply.
Thank you, Ms. Mackay. Any questions of Ms. Mackay?
So, any questions? Just jump in if you have a question of each. Look to them.
Thank you. Perhaps next on the list is Victoria York and Mr. Galvin. Ms. Trinder.
I'd just like to give a little bit of context with regards to the submissions from Victoria York and Andre Galvin. I'd first like to comment on submission 567, which sought the settlement zone for the site. Subdivision 530 sought the high natural character overlay to be redrawn and pulled back from the 3.9 hectares of site and that portion to be zoned residential. In this submission, there was no zone sought for the remainder of the property. I agree that submission 567 does provide some scope to consider an alternative zone for the remainder of the property. To reiterate, the scope of the submissions includes partial removal of the high natural character area and partial rezoning of the site to residential. I note that the proposed district plan from 2000 showed the site initially as residential. Then through the hearings process, the site was recommended to be zoned as general coastal in the revised proposed district plan in 2003. At no point was there an operative residential zone. If useful, I can provide the panel with a clear timeline of the zoning, as I did for this year. Various landscape experts have been involved in the assessment of the site. Most recently, a meeting was held with myself, Ms. Epsilon, and Mr. Stephen Brown, followed by a site visit which informed the most recent technical memo. Although Ms. Epsilon and Mr. Brown came to slightly different lines on the map where the high natural character overlay should remain, the key thing to note is that they were both supportive of the need to retain the overlay over most of the site, and both could see merit in a small number of building platforms outside the overlay. Ms. Epsilon's view was that there was possibly 5 platforms and Mr. Brown 1 or 2 more. As Mr. Collins stated in his technical memo and address yesterday, there are implications with access onto the state highway, but he could be supportive of an access off Gulf Drive. To my knowledge, an alternative access option has not been included in the information available to NZTA. when there has been discussions regarding access onto the state highway. In my experience, where alternative access options are available, they do not support maintaining access to state highway. In particular, in this instance, where Mr. Collins retains some concerns about the suitability of that access, and NZTA's concerns that unfunded upgrade works are required prior to the access being activated. So just finally, I consider I could provide a recommendation to the panel that allows for a small number of boarding platforms on the site. How exactly that looks, I can expand on further in my written reply.
Thank you. But obviously, there's a solution there, so I think it's definitely worth exploring. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, did we receive confirmation that number 42 was available for access?
Not as yet.
I think I did say by tomorrow, but he did seem to indicate that it was going to be coming fairly quickly. I'm assuming that's coming.
Thank you.
And I assume your recommendations based on that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Doug's Upua Boatyard, Mr. Schmuck.
Doug's Upua Boatyard sought removal of the zoning of the coastal marine area adjacent to the boatyard at 1 Richardson Street because council has no jurisdiction over the CMA. Council agrees to this change and recommends removing the zoning of the parcel within the CMA so it does not have any zone shown on PDP maps. Doug's Upua Boatyard also sought rezoning of the local purpose reserve in front of the boatyard from natural open space to open space zone, or the removal of reference to treaty settlements within the overview of the natural open space zone chapter. Council does not support rezoning to open space zone because of the use of the land is aligned with the purpose of the natural open space zone. And natural open space zoning is consistent with the reserves with common features, with other reserves with common features, sorry. Council recommends accepting the alternative relief proposed by the submitter, which is removing reference to the treaty settlements from the natural open space zoning overview because this of course creates unnecessary uncertainty.
Wasn't there a third part to that as well? Wasn't there a three-part submission?
It was 2 submission points, but there was 2 options for the relief in the second point. So we're recommending accepting the second relief, which is the removal of treaties.
Great, thank you.
The tree settlement overlay.
Oh, sorry, not overlay. So in the natural open space chapter in the overview, there is some wording which refers to, I can just simply read it out. This was part of yesterday's. So the wording at the moment says some natural open space land may be subject to treaty settlement claims and may be returned to Tangata Whenua. If this occurs, council will initiate a plan change to amend the zoning. So the submitter thought that wording be deleted because it creates creates uncertainty. And on reflection, we think that we agree with that. That's submission point.
Sorry, so to prepare for this tree settlement overlay, which could be any time.
It's not related to the treaty settlement overlay. It's about in future. It basically says that if there is a treaty settlement claim and then the land is returned to Mana Whenua as part of that, then it can be rezoned in future. It's essentially a note in the plan that we think could create some uncertainty because it's not clear what the plan change would rezone the land to. At the moment, that would be natural open space zone. So we think it's better not to have that wording in the plan and that could be considered in future in a case like this.
So just to clarify, doesn't it preclude it from happening? It's just not assuming it's not in that direction.
Just trying to remember the woman's face that's been talking about this for 20 years. Yeah, Mikey.
Yeah. I think
Mikey Marks.
for the benefit of the panel, the issue with it was that it suggested that it was a little bit unclear about the nuances of the land that might be involved. So whether that would be, for example, Crown land, which is essentially primarily what's restricted to, the law restricts that to, but we also inherently know that council-owned land is often used as well in those settlements. So it was just going to be so unclear that we couldn't find any particular wording that was going to provide clarity and certainty. But regardless, we know it's going to happen, and the intention was to send a bit of a signal. So we think on balance it's best that we don't overcomplicate matters and we deal with these things as they come up.
In the event of his death, do the children inherit that piece of land?
Then you're talking about the council, so
I know they're talking about the council research, but that was what was the long issue of, sorry.
Mr. Schmuck, have you?
That's the one that's down in Auckland with the little skid thing into the water.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit outside our knowledge.
But it came from the council. Anyhow, I'll leave that there.
Thank you.
And just, that's an issue to think about because there was a consideration that it became his property rather than using property.
Okay, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yes, thank you. Actually, while we're with Ms. Mackay, you had some comments too regarding evidence that was lodged but with no appearances. Yes.
So a number of other submitters provided hearing or evidence statements but did not appear before the hearing panel. I will briefly summarize the release and my position on those submissions. The definition of non-custodial rehabilitation activity. Corrections states that this term is defined because it is used in the provisions for corrections special purpose zone that were recommended at hearing 15B. I agree with the submitter and recommend this term be added to the definitions of the PDP. Sensitive activities. Transpower seeks a minor amendment to remove explicit reference to activities listed in the National Policy Statement on electricity transmission from the definition of sensitive activities. This change is appropriate to future-proof the plan from national correction change, and because schools, hospitals, and residential activities are already included, it does not change the intent. Restaurants, cafes, and takeaway food outlets. McDonald's has highlighted that this term is not currently defined though it is used in transport and light industrial zone chapters of the PDP. Council understands the matters raised and agrees there is a need for consistency. As a part of the written reply, we will look to reconcile the use of different terms and consider consistent use of food and beverage in the provisions or similar. The definition of large format retail. McDonald's opposes the use of the 450 square metre threshold within the definition. However, I consider that it is necessary to distinguish between large format retail and other small scale retail activities, which was already discussed and addressed in hearing 14. The definition of footprint. Top Energy seeks to define the term footprint as the area of land occupied by a structure. This term is used in the natural hazards and infrastructure chapters. I consider that the meaning of the term footprint is well understood, such that it does not need a specific definition in the PDP. Nesting tables. Several submitters, including Foodstuffs, McDonald's, and Top Energy, requested nesting tables be added to the PDP. As stated in hearing 14, Council does not support introducing nesting tables because the most specific rule will apply to the activity, as addressed in hearing 14 urban zones written reply, paragraph 66 to 72. Nesting tables were not embedded in the start of the process and there are risks to adding it now which could change the intent or undermine the integrity of the provisions or disconnect the whole framework. There are a number of district plans that do not contain missing tables that are effective. At the completion of this hearing, as part of the written reply, will provide a completed master's definition set, which includes all recommended amendments to definitions from the hearing and all other hearings, including rezoning and subdivision hearings.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. We move through to Capito et al. My notes suggest here that we were all essentially awaiting a suggestion of definitions around planned infrastructure. Is there any more to add?
The community groups raised concerns about council infrastructure not having sufficient capacity to accommodate development. In response, the proposed district plan uses the terms infrastructure and development infrastructure and contains several objectives and policies that require adequate development infrastructure is in place prior to subdivision and or development. This approach is consistent with the NPS for urban development and is explained in paragraphs 139 to 141 of the section 42A report for the sweep-up. And separate to the district plan, as mentioned yesterday by the hearing panel, in future, a Free Waters entity will be responsible for planned work programs for future upgrades and connection policies to integrate land use planning and infrastructure provision.
Again, did Vision Kerry, have they provided any extra word at the moment?
Not to our knowledge.
Given till Friday, was it?
I think I go to
Friday, tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unless there's, cool. We'll move on to Laclaw and Mr. Wyatt. I know that we've asked to get a few more visual aids, but is there anything else at this time you want to add?
No, I mean, there has been evidence and supplementary evidence on this issue already. What is different is now we have a clearer sort of area of where the land with extent of Burpegate Beach would be in terms of that restriction. So my response would just focus on that issue and with us support it, noting that there are wider issues to consider here in terms of restrictions on vehicles and beaches.
In terms of the mapping option, what's the information that you showed you? The mapping option, is that helpful?
I think it was helpful. Yeah, I think there's still a few issues to work through in terms of the benefit of that role and what's going to achieve in practice.
Yeah.
So is your recommendation to us just going to relate to that particular beach only?
Yeah, I'm still of the view that there is a suspicion. Even my supplementary evidence, I was quite clear that evidence is only identifies an issue in relation to that beach. I'm not convinced that a wider rule across the district is.
And surely, even if it's just restricted to the other vehicle access restriction beaches, and I don't know what that number is, we still have to do a separate mapping exercise with an element of subjectivity and probably several experts.
Yeah. In the range of natural justice issues.
It would be quite a undertaking down the street.
So clear step from me, I'm not continuing to go any wider than that beach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And probably, given the recent discussions with both Tapu Tahi and Waitumā crying out, I think our actions or engagement with.
Oh, wait a minute. What about Mr. Dawson?
Mr. Dawson, oh yes. Weirdo Station. My apologies. I'm trying to keep up with AK's time frame. I don't want to disappoint AK. She is the boss. Actually, so Mr. Wyeth, any comments on Weirdo, please?
Yeah, so firstly I'll respond to Mr. Hook's rebuttal evidence formally and clarify the areas where there are areas of disagreement and agreement. Some of that is not quite accurate in its evidence. In my 42A, I did not provide a very set of precinct provisions, but the onus was on the submitter, in my view, to address the identified issues. But I think it would be helpful to show the panel what they might look like. So I'll set out the options, their framework, relying on the controlled activity rule in the coastal environment, a set of precinct provisions for some sort of Now it's just the pros and cons and apply that to the town.
Yeah, we've gratefully received that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe now.
Now we can talk about it.
Now we're talking. So I think we've the matters with regard to Tapuatahi, we think we're all very clear on what's happening with those. We'll work with Mr. Sanson and hopefully a set of drafts for a precinct as of 14th of November.
If you just give me those dates tomorrow, if possible. So that I can assure minutes based on what we've agreed.
Yeah, so
It's basically sort of setting those arbitrary times and whatnot.
yeah, okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. We can do that, and Waitomo, I think, again, we've heard Waitomo. I think we're going to have a bit more of a discussion, I think, and we'll come back with what we think. Anything urgent, pressing that we do want to say in the interim?
Yeah, just to acknowledge that in regard to the Waitomo Papakanga Development Society's evidence this morning, we've heard that the land is owned by Māori and that there is an ancestral link demonstrated. Therefore, consider that they were to apply under Papakanga housing. PDP definition, they could qualify for the restricted discretionary activity status under the reduction zone R20, and the council will prepare a practice note to assist with the consistent interpretation of the definition of Papakanga housing. The overall framework for the Māori purpose zone has been applied to Māori land, being Māori federal land and Māori customary land, and rezoning the Waitomo Papakanga Development Society site from general land to the Māori purpose zone has the potential to undermine that. So,
Yes. Okay, no further questions.
So, sir, I suppose
That brings us to the end, doesn't it?
I rest my case.
Yes, so, anything else?
I think it was just a point of clarification. So the response from officers about the Māori purpose zone for Kipoto, what you've just said there, did you say it has a potential to undermine the framework? So officers not supportive of the rezoning.
So we'll get a formal response to you. That's our view at this point in time. The right of the fight will be the final position. There's still a little bit of thinking to do, I think, Mr. Chair.
Okay, good. Right, well, here we are. We're at the end of the end. So we're obviously going to have some formalities next. But I think obviously we've got to close this hearing. I think on behalf of the panel, it's been quite an amazing journey. We've enjoyed working with all thorough and be very organised and made our job so much easier through your professionalism, organisation skills, but sometimes we're maybe not as organised. Your ability to listen to submitters and concede when it's necessary, right to do so. I think it's been a mostly very, very enjoyable process without too many hiccups. Any of the panel members want to add anything? I think great. I mean, obviously we've got a lot of work still yet to do. A few lots of replies and we'll have our final reports. Hopefully ready by 31st of March next year.
So with regards to the right of reply, yeah, again, as noted, we're looking to align with that. I think it's 12th December date.
Yes. Yes. I wasn't quite sure what that December date was, so if you could suggest that,
pretty,
Have to
well,
work, yeah, have to work out.
AK's nodding, so it must be right.
I mean, here's the thing, we've got plenty of other things that we can get on with between now and December. So.
Perhaps,
So we end up with the end of the Karakiri now.
Look, I have perhaps myself a few or a number of things to say. So now's perhaps an opportunity before we get into the formalities for everybody.
This is with while we're still recording.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Just let everyone know what you're about to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've noticed that I've symbolically taken back AK. She's ours, you can't have it. First and foremost, I think we would sincerely thank you for your focus and attention, both on the evidence that we have put to you, but also that of the submitters from our communities. We have seen and heard the great depth and breadth of views as part of these hearings, which to my mind is an allegory for the communities of the far north. These are, in my experience and opinion, the most diverse and disparate of any district in New Zealand. Serve what initially felt like a marathon, a mountain decline has in fact been made up of 20 sprints, which as you can imagine is quite a bit of hard work. So over the length of the hearings, I guess we have been body slammed. We have gone looking for Catholic priests. We have wrestled the octopus. We have seen tears, laughter, and robust conversation. We have heard some deeply held personal views and similarly some highly technical expert evidence. So I've asked for some statistics, really. So just in reference to the project itself, it has started approximately 10 years ago. So it's the sum total of an awful lot of human capital and work engagement with staff and community. So the PDP was notified Wednesday the 27th of July 2022. We received 605 submissions with 8,725 original submission points, which is immense. 589 further submissions with, I think, a total of 26,088 points, which leads us, so that's not a total, that's just the further submission. So it leads us with a total of over 34,000 points to address as part of these processes, which is immense. So hearings began on Monday, 27th of May 2024. And as I said, over 20 hearings, we have essentially had 43 sitting days. We provided 55 Section 42A reports to you and made so far, I think, 26 replies in terms of the evidence that we have received. So 550 pieces of pre-circulated evidence from submitters, 247 received during the hearings, and we had 295 people appearing, both in person and remotely. So the hearing dates were held across 12 venues across the far north, which I think was important to us and certainly the organisation to get face out there. So this includes Chambers, Scenic Hotel Paihia, Sands Hotel Hokianga, which in my opinion is one of the best places on earth. Mahinga Ngāwha Business Centre at Te Kono, Kauri, Roma Marae, this function centre we have here, St John's Kirikiri, Te Ahu, Okariki Marae, Otiria Marae, and we actually had a virtual hearing as well. It was also important to us to support particularly these community venues and venues that would benefit from our presence and support. We've also had one complete set of PDP maps and plans stolen. It's a very strange act. but it was expensive. So the panel, we thank you for your due care and attention to our community and your sensitivity towards matters arising, which has been, both people's emotional positions, their cultural positions, and certainly sensitive information. We've handled that, I think, the most appropriate way. In my view, every submitter has had the opportunity to be listened to. I hope that they felt that. In particular, we thank you for, as I say, emotive evidence, and that's not to diminish that. It's not a diminishing term. Evidence is personal. So, importantly, I do want to recognise the submitters' input into this process. We have taken the view, as you're probably well aware, our role in this process is to make the PDP better. We cannot do this on our own. We need to do this in partnership with our communities and submitters. So without them, this plan is, I won't say nothing, but certainly greatly diminished in its effectiveness and relationship. And the only way you can get buy-in is to bring people in the waka with you. So the hearings are a two-way conversation. In my view, I don't believe that the plan-making process, particularly hearings, need to be inherently adversarial, which I think has been reflected by the way we've engaged and looked to problem solve through this process. It is an opportunity to refine and improve. In fact, as I said, it's essential at its core. We have seen some outstanding commitment to participation from a number of community groups, NGOs and sector groups. We've heard from individuals. We've heard from a wide range of people. We've received some really, I found, some evidence of quite outstanding quality from, and it's probably not ideal to single people out, but the likes of Mr. Kapakingi, who you know what he is saying. It's very clear what he is saying. You understand there's no spin, it's direct, it's clear. So I've always enjoyed hearing from that submitter. For lay submitters and sometimes this process can be confusing and daunting, sometimes downright scary. I congratulate and commend the bravery of individuals where they have stepped up to the challenge, and we've seen, we'll call them the community groups from particularly Kirikiri based, have their strong commitment to being engaged, being involved and being heard through this process. In addition, I want to acknowledge and all the work the supporting experts have been or have contributed to Council's response to submissions. In my opinion, and without exception, have delivered incredibly high quality advice to us. I have been very pleased with the service we have received from our external experts. I would also like to acknowledge other parts of Council who have enabled us to do what we do, particularly the growth planning team, Jay and Asman in particular, consenting team, infrastructure, communications, who have done a huge amount of work to support us, and Te Hono for their support as well. So I want to personally thank my wider team. They've given their absolute all to give the panel the best possible advice we're able to give. I've asked much of my team, more than I have had any right to ask for. Not once was I told no, I can't, or it is too hard. This is in the face of extreme workloads and personal sacrifice. Truly humbled by their efforts and commitment to the task and to their community. Sir, it is easy to find motivation to lead when your team puts so much of themselves into this. I was going to say nice things about them, but I don't think I can do it. Sir, these are my people. My people are me. An allegory to the past few days here. the fog has cleared. I do not walk alone. I'm so very proud of you all and very grateful that we are all part of the same team. Thank you. If we considered the task before us in April, May last year, we would have said what would have been nearly somewhat, we would have said that this would be somewhat challenging, which I think somewhat underplays the challenge. What you have delivered collectively is just short of impossible. And in my opinion, and not just my opinion, as a matter of fact, an exemplar for these processes across New Zealand. This is how we do things. I would like to publicly thank the families, partners and supporters of the team. I acknowledge the costs paid to you in terms of valuable time and attention. The support of your whānau through this process is appreciated and has meant that we were able to achieve what we have. I want to particularly acknowledge the parents in our team and the constant juggling and sacrifices required to keep both roles. Again, thank you dearly. Sir, during this time we have had additions with new life joining the FNDC planning whānau. I would also like to acknowledge the losses for some of our whānau along the way. We have felt those losses with you. Life, unfortunately, does not stop for a PDP hearing process. On a very personal note, if you would indulge me a little bit, I wish to thank my mother and brother for keeping things going at home when I have been absent and distracted. They have picked me up off the floor from time to time and nursed me through this process. I would particularly like to thank my former partner and recognise the difficulties and challenges this process has presented. I would like to acknowledge and thank Mayor Moko and his public support of the PDP process. I would like to thank Mr. Ackers, Group Manager, Policy and Planning, for his support of the project as well. I would particularly like to thank Mr. Worcester to her trust and faith in the team to be able to deliver this, and faith in myself to be able to deliver this successfully to the panel. Ms. Worcester gave me the task of bringing this hearing phase to a conclusion on time and with everybody intact. That's not to diminish the bumps, the bruises along the way, of which there are a lot. But today, although we aren't fully completed, I think I can proudly say that we have done that. Finally, sir, while it is the management of natural resources that may drive the statutory process that brings us all together, it is clear to me at the very heart of it is people. The wider team has worked tirelessly to make a difference to our community, to ensure that PDP supports making great places for the far north and to support our people. That is why we are here. That is our purpose. We can only thrive together, people. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, thank you very much. I think that deserves a round of applause. First, I want to take a photo. Thank you both for you guys sitting there. I think it's awesome. And we're all really deeply touched by what you're saying. Choking back the tears themselves. I'm going to say something later on when Moto gets here. But one thing I said right at the very beginning of the process when we get the politicians was we can all be grateful that we live in a country that values public participation in the hearing process. And I think each one of us have embraced that principle of and working together for that common goal. To such an important document. And as you say, I think there's been a real team atmosphere throughout this whole hearing process. It's not been us and them, it's been about, we've tried to bring the attitude of making it informal, sometimes a little bit fun, but certainly inclusive and getting people to feel welcome and at home. And that doesn't just come from us, it comes from you as well. And I think we all embrace that principle. I think there's a real sort of far north, whānau vibe that's happened out of this, and it's been reflected back from those people that I engage with back in Auckland, and other people, particularly the lawyers, have just been amazed at how inclusive and welcoming it felt. So, and that's to be shared amongst all of us. It was all of us sort of sharing in that common way of proceeding with this. The words were really, really well prepared, James. I felt like the guy who followed Jimi Hendrix. Nobody knows who he was. So we lost a lot of effort into those thoughts, and they're obviously very heartfelt. And so we received them very gratefully. And August done such an incredible job. We really appreciated the help we've given us. We felt like we were climbing several mountains as well, but we always knew that we had a supportive council team who were on our side. Anybody else want to say anything?
Hard to match.
No words this time.
Kia ora tātai. Ngā mihi kia koutou katoa ngā kaimahi o te kaunihira. Mihi atu kia koutou mo tō koutou kaha. A hako kare tino marama e tahi wā ki e tahi o koutou tohutui. So I just want to thank you for your effort. Sorry, I didn't understand everything all of the time. I elected to only come to a few hearings because sometimes I think some of the kōrero can turn you inside out. And I had a real quandary over one issue which affected me deeply as a Māori, as a descendant of two iwi, putting different positions. And at that stage I thought, I think I'll chuck it in. And then I thought, well, I go to all these Waitangi tribunal hearings and other hearings, and I complain about parties making decisions. But here I am, I'm in a chance to help make a decision, and I'm wanting to opt out of it too. So mihi atu kia koutou and to the team, learned heaps. This fella has the most incredible notes. In council, if you look around the table, you can look at, if people read their minutes, you can tell if they read their minutes, but how they colour tab their notes. This fella, I had to borrow his notes, a hard copy, and I had already read it online, but it reminded me of Babe Kappa and John Rusich. So, anyhow, just mihi to the team and to your leadership, Bob. And what I like about you, even though you're, is that you look for solutions. And so for me, being part of the council is about creating solutions, cutting through the crap, and making things happen for people. Aha kōkua, no matter who it is, that it's sensible, practical, useful. So I don't always understand things, but if you ever need to ask me any questions, please feel welcome to, but keep it simple. And sometimes people ask me a question and they don't like my answer, but I'll just tell you if you ask, but don't be afraid. And that's all I've got to say. I'm so happy this is all over for you guys because you came to 80%, and I have really enjoyed the advice that and watching these guys in play. Wahine mā, tāne mā in play, and they know every single, and they discuss things and throw it up in the air, but always looking at what's a solution rather than let's just continue keeping things locked in a box. So, koina mōku, so thank you. This is my relation, by the way.
Thanks very much, guys. What happens now?
We'll close the karakia, and we've invited
Obviously,
Teresa.
There's going to be a few more formalities yet, and so
Yes.
Thank you very much for that presentation.
It's a privilege to be able to give this karakia back to our hearing this afternoon. It's good to be at hearing one.
Yes.
Kaitaia in May last year, and it's extra good up to 80 months to be here in Waitangi in a special place, closing out hearings process as part of a big project, as James has described to you, with karakia, so karakia. Kia tau, kia tātou katoa, ia te whānau te tātou ariki ko I kawaiti ake, amen.
E honore, o gloria, mangaro I te whenua, ki ngā tangata katoa, ake, amine, he atua, he tina, tōku oranga, tōku oranga. Kia ora.
Thank you. Just stop the recording.
As they say,